This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
You're listening to CharacterDriven. This is the second of a two-part series with Ole Dammegard. The music you're listening to was composed and performed by Ole Dammegard. For more information, go to CharacterDriven.com.
It's divide and conquer, and they want the attention away from them, and so that we start blaming each other. That's how they create all the civil wars, how they divide up the societies, how they deconstruct societies, because this is what they're trying. They're trying to make us weak, internationally, nationally, and locally, and because we're back to, once again, they are a very small group. We are so many. They need us very, very weak and very distressed and fearful to be able to control us. It is really like, the Wizard of Oz, where you got this beautiful little girl who the only thing that she wants to is get back to the way things used to be, when they were in balance, when before the storm, before the hurricane, when everything was beautiful and harmony and love was there and all of these things. Then came the hurricane. That is what we've been looking at for decades here, when this group has been really going for it. And now she's looking to get the way back. But the only way to get back is to face this very feared tyrant in the castle, the Wizard of Oz. And when she gets there, I know you know the story, I'm just telling it anyway. She gets into the castle, and there's this voice saying, you're weak, we're powerful. But this little girl, she's so determined to get back in balance, to get back to harmony. So she does not back off, even though she's very frightened. And then suddenly she sees this electrical cord wire going in behind a curtain. So she walks up to it and pulls the curtain. And what is sitting in there? Is it a massive giant of extremely powerful people? No, it's a tiny little old guy with a microphone and a massive big amplifier. That is the elite. That is the perfect symbol for the elite. A very old guy, fearful old guy, with a microphone and the amplifier. The microphone and the amplifier, that's media for you. Mm-hmm. Where it's just pumping out fear and terror and awful things to keep you fearful. Because if you start getting the power back and not feeling fearful, they cannot control you. If they say, do that, and you're not fearful, and you said, no, I don't want to, they cannot control you. Mm-hmm. So they try to scare you with all this military force, with all of these weapons and high tech, all of these things. I mean, these guys, when you look at it, the group I'm talking about, most of them are in their 60s or older than that. If you give them a normal laptop, okay, they can send an email or two, but that's about it. And we're talking high-tech weapons. We're talking drones. We're talking all types of military, super-duper, blooper, satellite interface. If it was up to them, they would not be able to even push the button for a nuclear war because they couldn't find it. Do you know, that's who we're up against. So the only reason they're in a power position is because we are helping them. We are doing it for them. We are controlling ourselves. It is so mad. We are controlling our neighbors so they don't get out of line. Mm-hmm. We are phoning the police saying, this guy over there, I think he's a truth seeker. My God, he might be a terrorist.
Yeah.
We're controlling it. We're doing it for them. And just because we get awarded by maybe getting a good paycheck if you work at the NSA or the CIA or the FBI and so on, my God, please understand, if you are one of these people, you are shooting yourself in the foot. The people you're serving, their agenda includes you and your family as well.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as they don't need you anymore, you're out.
Mm-hmm.
You're out. And the more powerful you are, the better at what you're doing. If you're a general or something like that, look at what dictators do. As soon as they get into power, and the military who's helped them into power, as soon as this military force becomes too powerful, the dictator starts chop, 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 chop the heads of generals and colonels and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Then after a year or so, new generals, when they start becoming too powerful because they become a threat to the tyrant. The dictator knows how fragile, how weak he and this little group is. So they need to defuse a possible threat. So that's, even if you're a general with all of these medals and stars and so, you're not safe either.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a lot of evidence as well, even through the 50s and 60s, and we see what happened to various people that spoke out. But we've got, Eisenhower, who is trying to let us know what was happening in his own way, but probably was too indoctrinated in the system to go further. But then we've got JFK, who started to allude to what was happening. And I guess they have to do it in the most secret of ways. But he started to just say, there's a conspiracy afoot here. And gee, what happened to him? And I'm sure that comes up in your research all the time. When they say the good die young, it's because the good are actually speaking out, and then they get their head cut off for having done that. So that there's no coincidence there, I don't think, in terms of all these people that are trying to speak the truth, and their tongues get cut off in whatever way that these folks can do it. And I think it's the same as with child sacrifice and all the different things they do ritualistically. They make it sound so incredibly bizarre and unrealistic that we can't believe it. So somebody speaks out against it and says, this is happening. They're the ones that look like they're insane. So it's always this bait and switch kind of idea. I don't know if you want to get into that any more than I already have, but we might be able to do that on a different show. But I think, you probably have a lot of information about how these things work very specifically in very specific situations, I would imagine.
I do, but I prefer staying away from them because they're so awful, these areas. But what I do know, what you mentioned Eisenhower and so on, I think that Eisenhower, in his goodbye speech before JFK was elected as president, when in his goodbye speech, I think he was very, very concerned that he had been part of creating an absolute monster of this military-industrial complex, that he had allowed it, or been part of allowing it, getting into every single little community in the country and nationally and so on. And he said we had to become aware of this military-industrial complex. It's a monster and it's taking over. If we don't stop it now, it will just eat us alive. This was 1961. Then came JFK. He became very aware of this also. He stood up against it. He said, it was, I think, after the missile crisis where the world was so close to a third world war, and where he was the guy who, with a finger on the button, and people who were there said that he had tears in his eyes, and he just said, I refuse to be the one who does this to the world. After that, he suddenly started in a totally different direction, where he became this very powerful individual who said, absolute no way are we going to do this to the world. So he said, we're going to crush the CIA into 1,000 pieces. I'm going to withdraw out of Vietnam, which was not even an American war really at that time. I'm going to get out of the grip of the Federal Reserve Bank to get money without us being strangled by this totally illegal institution called the Federal Reserve Bank. A very, very horrible part of this control system internationally that they're holding us by the throat with. But so many different areas. And but it came to a point where the elite behind them, what they fear most, and I think one of the main reasons why he was assassinated, was because he was so popular. He was so popular that if he said something, millions would follow. This is the same thing, with Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, Lady Diana.
I was going to
so
say
on.
Lady Diana in a more contemporary context.
Yeah, Lady Diana, Bob Marley, John Lennon, all of these have been murdered. Bob Marley as well. People don't know he was murdered, but he was. They were in a situation where they were so popular that if they said, let's go this way, millions would follow, and it would become an incredible problem for this military-industrial complex and the global elite which is behind them. So this is why I think they were taken out. And in my opinion, John F. Kennedy, he was the last real elected president in the States. The whole long row of presidents who have been in power since then, been in puppet position since then, has been just another front face of the same very, very brutal war, a machine of death and war and destruction that took over that day, the 22nd of November, 1963, and that has been in power ever since. The latest, the very nice package is the Obama package, very beautiful face and nice voice, saying all the things you want to hear. Does not matter. It's just another nice cover of the same death machine.
They've set this up so that if I, as a person, says, he's just another in a line of puppets, and you watch, what's going to happen with him, and he's part of the problem, and that sort of thing. And look where he came from, Chicago, and he'd already been preened. And I knew when he was on Oprah that it was a setup. It was interesting because I saw him rising to power through the Oprah show. And I thought, this guy comes out of obscurity. Now he's running for president, and then he becomes president. This is not, just a great story of victory and coincidence. This is all orchestrated.
I tell you, I can give you some inside info about that one if I'm correct. He was groomed for about 20 years beforehand. I tell you, I please anyone who heard about Barack Obama 2-3 years before he became president, please step forward, because there's not a lot of them.
So probably mostly it was the women that were watching Oprah that were introduced to him first, I would say.
But also I would say that, do you remember the series 24?
I do.
You do? With Kiefer Sutherland, he's an FBI agent and at the CTU anti-terrorist unit.
Yeah, getting us prepared for what was to come, as the movies do. And yes, sorry.
This is the way. And I would say that I would very much suggest that 24, being a great series, was a psyop as well, to prepare the subconscious of people. Because if you went just a few years down before Barack Obama came, just the thought of a president, a black president, was just unheard of. But I would say we're back to problem, reaction, solution. What they did with Boy George, the Bush family, is extremely central in this whole New World Order agenda. Absolute super criminal family, this family. And it's the father, not Boy George. He's just another not very intelligent front cover, but he was just a puppet there. But Father George and Grandfather Prescott Bush and these people are very central in a lot of mayhem in the world. But anyway, when Boy George was in power, you had 9/11, all of these things, and he went full speed ahead with all of these wars, getting the population in the States to a position where you just felt, oh my God, my head is going to explode if this guy does anything more mad like this. And then that's problem. Then to get the reaction, oh my God, something needs to be done. And in on stage comes Barack Obama, primed through 24, where you had this series where the president, or the Senator Palmer, this beautiful man who was standing for all of these beautiful values. I mean, honesty, dignity, compassion. They could not bribe him. They could not force him to do anything. He was standing by his word. I mean, this guy, you loved him. Beautiful voice. He looks a bit similar to Barack Obama, more heavy set, but otherwise than that, you would just love this guy. And even though he was pressured from all sides and and turns. He still stood his ground. Absolute incredible man. And then in on stage from the left, Barack Obama from absolute nowhere. And he comes in backed up with Time Life magazine, saying that, naming him the best president ever before he was even elected. He was on Oprah. He was given the Nobel Peace Prize for things to come. I mean, listen to the madness.
This is how dumbed down we've become as a society. And again, I'm not, a lot of people look at the school system or the government or whatever. I just say this is all part of the agenda. No one's really to blame in the sense that they've been so indoctrinated from such an early age. It's like a military exercise, really. We start to buy into so many things and just don't see the signs and don't put things together because we're taught not to have any sense of critical thinking. What we're doing right here is we're starting on a path for people to hopefully become awake and do some thinking. The biggest weapon we have is our free will and our ability to think. And if we co-opt that, or if we allow it to be taken away from us by not seeing these signs and these connections. There's a really good series by James Burke in the 70s called Connections, and I loved it because he did basically what we're doing here, only with inventions and how they're all interrelated. And if we start to see the world in that way and how things are interrelated, if it seemed a coincidence, it's probably not a coincidence. It's probably something that, as you said, is part of the play. What you're saying here is that I guess it's not our fault that we're taken in, get us so busy doing our lives and trying to make money and trying to pay the Federal Reserve that, we're not noticing some of the things that we need to. So we're just helping people here to do that.
But we have a very big responsibility in this because it's only because of us being so asleep and so brain dead for such a long time that this small little group has been able to pull this off. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an absolute joke when you look at it. And many of these so-called conspiracies and so on, they're absolute no-brainers. My daughter, my child could figure it out in 5 minutes, but just because it's being pumped out through the media, we buy it. You take the assassination of Robert Kennedy, for instance. You got Sirhan, the guy who's still rotting away in prison for the assassination. Mm-hmm. He, at no point did he get any closer than 1.5 meters. That's like, what is that in feet? Like 8 feet or something like mm-hmm. that, right in front of Robert Kennedy, okay? He had a revolver with 8 shots. So how many shots were fired? Around 13 and 14. Is it to be a conspiracy theorist to say, how on earth could he shoot 14 shots without reloading? Mm-hmm. No, it's just a matter of being a normal, intelligent person saying, well, there must have been more than one shooter. Okay, so you look at, as soon as he started firing, people jumped him. It was a very crowded little kitchen at the Ambassador Hotel. They jumped him, got him down, rested him down on a steam table, got the gun away from him. He fired several shots, but so of course, 14 shots were fired, and of course, Robert Kennedy was hit all the time straight from the front. Absolute no. He was hit straight from behind and to the right. And the last shot was fired. He was hit 3 times. And that last shot was fired point blank, so it even burned away hair from his skull. So I would say, who was standing to the right and behind him? Is that to be a conspiracy theorist? Once again, no. It's just you look at the evidence with an open mind and say, the killer must have been standing behind him to the right, not in front of him, 8 feet from him. To this very day, even if you mention it, you're like, oh, you're into conspiracy theories. I am.
You're a polka dot dress person.
But she was involved in the assassination. Her name was Catherine. I cannot remember it right.
Oh, sure.
On another show, we can go very much into the JFK assassination.
Sure. That's just a signal to people as soon as you mention a polka dot dress that the rest of the folks that are still asleep are going to say, "Oh, I see you're a polka dot dress person," as opposed to a tinfoil hat person.
Do you know the term conspiracy theorist was created by the same people that was behind the JFK assassination to hit people. It was created in 1963 in December to hit people as soon as they pointed a critical finger towards the investigation and saying they threw this word at them. And the reason why conspiracy theorist is because if there's a theory, there's a doubt. It's not conspiracy facts, it's a theory. Well, you all got all your theories and so on. And they've used this weapon against anyone ever since. It's still conspiracy theorist. Yeah.
As you said, we could probably go into some of these other areas. We could have several shows on this, and I would like to reserve my right to be able to do that because I think that would be really great. What I want to do is have discrete shows or series of topics where people can take this and they can give it to somebody. Some of us have a difficult time remembering everything or being able to put it in the proper order. So when I talk to a person like yourself whose area of expertise and study and empirical evidence is in these fields, then we can get it sort of straight from the horse's mouth. And that's something that I really like to do rather than shuffling along and having conjecture and assumptions. That's the other trick, I think, is to get us speculating. If I've got a vehicle that needs to be fixed, I could speculate all day about why it's not working, but the best thing to do is to take it to someone who knows how to fix it. And then I don't have to worry about it anymore. I know how much it's going to cost and that sort of thing, and I can start to work toward a solution. And, using that as sort of a little example, when we're just sitting around talking about things and it might be this and it might be that, it's so much better to go to somebody like yourself. Get the information that you have so kindly put together at your own peril for our good. And I want people to understand that. As you say, people have died in the making of this conspiracy, and it's happening all the time. And here we are looking at the Sudan, or we're looking at Somalia and Rwanda, which are absolute travesties, but it's happening all around us as we speak. It's just that we don't see it in quite such stark terms.
But you know what? I think it's so wonderful. At least I'm super optimistic about the future because 30 years of my life, just like you said, I have friends dying around me. I've been part of exposing some of the worst serial killers in modern times. I've really done everything I can, put myself online, which I do on a regular basis here. But the thing is, what I've found out is that the power behind so much mayhem in the world, I mean, so much of these things that people cannot see are actually connected, which makes it wonderful because then we're only up against a few thousand instead of living in a totally crazy world.
Mm-hmm. It puts order into it in a certain way, which is the ironic part. When we do start to investigate, we start to see these patterns. Well, to me, that's a sign of intelligence, is people that can see patterns and they're not just seeing things in isolation.
The thing is that it's not things I believe or think. I've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of hours looking into the evidence, digging through documents, archives, you name it, I've been there. But if it would be okay with you, I wrote a song in 1997 about this thing. It's called From Prison to Paradise. Mm-hmm. And would it be okay if I just read the lyrics, because I think they're very much
I would love you to do that. That would be a great way to end off this particular show and leave it for other people to start doing some of the things that we're talking about, and then we'll meet together another time and talk about some of the specifics. I'm going to let you do that right now.
I just want to say I'm not funded by anyone. I've done these 30 years just because my heart has been showing me the way this is what is needed to be done. Nobody else was doing it, as far as I could see, so I just had to do it. So if anyone wants to support me in it, please go to my website. my newsletter, my membership area, my books, these things, or donations. I get donations from all over the world, and that helps me to continue with exposing and going out there, doing everything I can. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the song is called From Prison to Paradise. I got the title once I heard David Icke. I met him in the early 90s, and I heard him mention it, and I thought that was such a beautiful title. So it's from an album I made that is also called From Prison to Paradise. It goes like this. Once upon a time, in a place not far from here, there was so much loneliness, despair, and oh so much fear. Darkness ruled all over the land. There was lightning in the sky, causing wars and separation, with no one knowing why. These evil times raised leaders, disguised as kind and true, hiding the truth in misty fog so only very few people knew, controlled by an elite few, manipulating you and me, closing out the light and power that can make us all be free. Wake up, we gotta wake up. Wake up, we gotta wake up now. Forced by invisible powers, demanded to conform into shapes unknown to mankind, making him totally abnormal. Drowned in debts and sorrows, blaming others for their lot, made man believe to be inferior, feeling tiny like a dot. And then, this is where we are now in 2015. But then came times of change covering countries and their towns. Few became many, and soon the prison walls came down. Starting with the men in the mirror staring right back into their eyes, understanding that this was a chance to stop those hideous lies. Unhappiness is merely an illusion of misery, based on brainwash and a misconception of true reality. From now on, let's build bridges between our souls and hearts, so we together can rejoice when the final change comes to its start. Wake up, we gotta wake up now. Wake up, we gotta wake up now. Turning prison into paradise may seem too much to achieve, but believe me, it only takes one strong spirit to be free. The true power of a pyramid is never ever at the top. Instead, it's we the people that can make this global game stop. Did you get it? Wake up, we gotta wake up now.
We've covered a lot of ground. I think it's really a good primer. You know, most of the audience members on my show do understand a lot of this, but I think, you know, that they still have a hard time sussing it out, and they get kind of focused on one thing. You know, they kind of go down a rabbit hole, and that's the problem. And chemtrails are the problem, or the, you know, smart meters are the problem. And these are all true things, but I'll have people talking about these very things, smart meters or whatever, and we see the connection. I have one show called Weaponizing the Grid, and it's a guy who's a retired military signals operator, and he started to see what was happening at 88 and came out of retirement because his daughter was asking him about smart meters and wanted to know, hey, Dad, you know about radio frequencies, what's the deal with the smart meters? And he started to see himself what was happening. And so we've got people that once they begin to see the weirdness of it, all of a sudden, we're getting rid of all the meters in all the world. It's not just a local thing, it's a worldwide thing. We're being basically commandeered on our own property and made to have these things. So when we see these kinds of signs, we need to look at what they're pointing to, I think. That's my message to my audience.
I totally agree. Anytime I can help, I'm right there.
Oh, I so appreciate it.
It's our future.
On that note, I'm going to say goodbye to you, and I hope to talk to you very soon and stay in touch. Thank you very much, Ole, for being part of the show today.
It's my absolute pleasure, and anytime I can, wherever or whatever, where I can make a difference for the better, count me in.
Once upon a time, in a place not far from here, there was so much loneliness, despair, and oh so much fear. Darkness ruled all over the land, there was lightning in the sky, causing wars and separation, with no one knowing why. These evil times raised leaders, disguised as kind and true, hiding the true and misty fog so only very few people knew. Controlled by an elite few, manipulating you and me, closing out the light and power that can make us all be free. Wake up, wake up, wake up. paradise for the lot. Made man believe to be inferior, feeling tiny like a dot. But then came time of change, covering countries and their towns. Few became many and soon the prison walls came down. Starting with the wind in the mirror, staring right back into their eyes, understanding that this was a chance to stop those hideous lies. Unhappiness is merely an illusion of misery, based on brainwashing and misconception of true reality. From now on, let's build bridges between our souls and hearts, so we together can rejoice when the final change comes to its start. Wake up, wake up, wake up, we gotta wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, we gotta wake up. Turning prison into paradise may seem too much to achieve, but believe it only takes one small spirit to be free. The true power of the pyramid is never ever at the top. Instead, it's we the people that can make this global game stop. Did you get it?
You're listening to Character Driven on CHLY 101.7 FM. Ole refers to a Nobel Peace Prize won by Barack Obama in 2009. Here's Russell Brand's take on that prize from The Trues, his YouTube channel.
Hello, welcome to Trues. Trues is true news. Subscribe here to receive true news every day. It will appear inside of your eyelids, danced in tiny molecules of light. That's just looking at things, really. That's just a way of describing what actually happens. Today in the True News, we're talking about Barack Obama. He's in charge of America. He's made a decision to spend $1 trillion on nuclear weapons. Why do they need so many nuclear weapons? A lot of people think we've already got enough. I think there's enough to break everything down if we needed to. If it was like, have we got enough to destroy everything? Yes. Let's not question whether or not that in itself is an unkind and unholy objective. We have got enough to do it. We decided to have a look at Barack Obama's Nobel Prize winning speech. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. The Nobel Peace Prize is awarded to those who have done the most or best work for fraternity between nations, the abolition or reduction of standing armies, and for the holding and promotion of peace congresses. They looked at everyone in the world. And they went, right, who's done that the most, really, out of everyone? I think it's Barack Obama who's done a good job of it. Now look what he's done. So let's have a look at his Nobel Peace Prize winning speech to see if it makes us, what it makes us feel in our tummies.
I receive this honor with deep gratitude and great humility. It's an award that speaks to our highest aspirations, that for all the cruelty and hardship of our world, we are not mere prisoners of fate.
We're not prisoners of fate. Seems that we're prisoners of the military-industrial complex, though.
The world may no longer shudder at the prospect of war between two nuclear superpowers, but proliferation may increase the risk of catastrophe.
Who's the threat coming from? It's an economic and financial decision. I suppose it says here that, in something we got out of the New York Times, that when he first came to office, Obama was clear-sighted about nuclear dangers and ambitious about disarmament, and his major arms control achievement was a New START treaty with Moscow aimed at reducing deployment of strategic nuclear weapons to 1,550 on each side. That's still, like are my ambitions as a human being too great? These are them. Peace and harmony among all the Earth's people, finding common objectives between us all, of which there are many. The majority of us want the same thing. We've got to transcend those kind of ideas. Our ambitions can't be, can we have a few less nuclear weapons? No, that's unachievable, we're getting more.
I'm responsible for the deployment of thousands of young Americans to battle in a distant land. And some will kill, and some will be killed.
Already starting to sound not that peaceful, like even now, before he'd done the trillions of nuclear weapons. Said by February 2018 to win Republican support for the aforementioned treaty to reduce nuclear arms by a miserable amount. Obama made a Faustian pact promising to spend $84 billion to upgrade aging nuclear weapons. I don't buy this sort of blaming the Republicans. I know the Republicans are a bit worse than the Democrats, but oh, it's the bloody Republicans. You're all basically doing the same stuff.
And so I come here with an acute sense of the costs of armed conflict, filled with difficult questions about the relationship between war and peace and our effort to replace one with the other.
Since he gave this speech, Barack Obama's principles have obviously changed because he's entered into the structures and systems of contemporary politics where this kind of grandstanding, idealistic rhetoric becomes redundant as you enter, I suppose, the economic, financial realities and tribal affiliations of contemporary politics.
Now, these questions are not new. War in one form or another appeared with the first man at the dawn of history.
You don't know that. You don't know what happened at the dawn of history.
The capacity of human beings to think up new ways to kill one another proved inexhaustible, as did our capacity to exempt from mercy those who look different or pray to a different God.
There is a narrow space within which what is normal and orderly is allowed to be discussed and is defined. And here, by saying stuff like that, the dawn of history, it's like the narrativization of what's acceptable. Basically, this speech, even coming when it did, it was like, we're all just, this is the way things have to be. Things have to be a bit like this. Human beings are bellicose, belligerent, warlike people, so the best we can do is see how much money we're going to spend on nuclear. We're going to try and limit it, but you know, it's tricky. It's just not true. It's just not true.
In the wake of such destruction, and with the advent of the nuclear age, it became clear to victor and vanquished alike that the world needed institutions to prevent another world war. America led the world in constructing an architecture to keep the peace, a Marshall Plan and a United Nations, mechanisms to govern the waging of war, treaties to protect human rights, prevent genocide, restrict the most dangerous weapons.
You should say, I shouldn't be given this Nobel Prize because really I work for a military-industrial complex that its survival is contingent upon the manufacture of nuclear arms and requires there to be a constant state of flux and conflict. So I'm the wrong man for this award. I'm going to get us in a terrible, all sorts of scrapes, really, so I won't accept it.
I make this statement mindful of what Martin Luther King Jr. said in this same ceremony years ago. Violence never brings permanent peace. It solves no social problem. It merely creates new and more complicated ones. As someone who stands here as a direct consequence of Dr. King's life work, I am living testimony to the moral force of nonviolence.
I don't watch this and think, oh God, he's really changed, man. Like, he's been corrupted by politics. You just think, there's a milieu of thought, there's a strata, a strand of thought and debate, and it's informed by and controlled by economic interests and powerful bodies, I suppose, whatever it is. I'm not a big mad conspiracy theory person, but I just think that the level of Democrat and Republican is a shield for a different power structure, which is probably easy to trace and observe. Economic entities, transnational corporations. I think that's where sort of real power lies. And I think that we have to organise differently. It's like, I think that we have to have, between us, communication, and to develop systems and alternatives where we go, right, remember there's all those lunatics. Okay, yeah, thanks, well done with your Nobel Peace Prize and your treaty and your $1 trillion of arms investment. Right, okay, we're going to need to get food to people and protect the planet. Yeah, they're not going to help, are they? They're lunatics. So what should we do? But it's like we've got to just sort of ignore them and develop alternatives. There are lots of people that are developing alternatives. Perhaps you should have a look at the Venus Project. People keep telling me about the Venus Project. We'll have a look at that. So, as we've long said here on The Truths, Barack Obama, whoever the Republican one is now, Mitt Romney, David Cameron, Ed Miliband, meaningless facade, all of them maintaining the same structures. We must ignore them and develop our own structures. That is some truths.
Nose is a tool that is abused to fool you and to leave you scared and confused. Truths is like the news. If the news was true, I want some truths. Let's have some truths.
You're listening to Character Driven on CHLY 101.7 FM. The music you're listening to was composed and performed by Ole Dammegard.
So free of blame and free of hate, rejoining